My mother, Beatrice Newcomb, looked me straight in the eye and said the most heartbreaking words I'd ever heard. Adopted children aren't real family, Josephine. Blood is what matters. She was talking about my precious 8-year-old daughter, Hazel, who was sitting right outside the door, probably hearing every cruel word. 2 months later, when Mother tried to access her bank account, she discovered I'd done something that left her speechless and shaking with rage. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Josephine, and I'm a 38-year-old elementary school librarian in a small Connecticut town where everyone knows everyone's business. For 5 years, I've been the proud mother of Hazel, the little girl I adopted from foster care when she was just 3 years old. She came to me with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes and a teddy bear missing one eye. Today, she's the light of my life, though my mother has never seen her that way. My mother, Beatrice, now 67, used to run the local bank branch with an iron fist before she retired. She believes in 3 things: proper table manners, keeping up appearances, and most importantly, that family means blood relations only. My father, Clifford, disagreed with that last part, but he'd been gone 6 months when this story really began. My older sister, Francine, 41, never missed a chance to remind everyone she'd given Mother 3 real grandchildren. Brendan at 12 was already entitled and spoiled, Meredith at 10 was following in his footsteps, and little Colton at 7 was actually sweet, but learning fast that he could get anything he wanted from Grandma B just by existing with the right DNA. The day that changed everything started like any other. Mother had summoned us to her house, the same colonial on Maple Street where I'd grown up. She sat at the head of the dining table like a queen holding court, with Francine smirking beside her like she'd already won some contest I didn't know we were having. "I've updated my will," Mother announced, sliding the papers across the mahogany table that had been in our family for generations. "I want everything crystal clear, so there are no arguments later." I picked up the document, scanning through the legal language while my heart started racing. Francine's children were listed everywhere: trust funds, college accounts, shares of the house, family heirlooms, even my grandmother's pearl necklace I'd been promised since I was 7 years old. Hazel's name appeared exactly 0 times. "Mother," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were trembling, "you forgot to include Hazel." She lifted her chin the way she always did when she'd made up her mind about something. "I didn't forget anything, Josephine. I'm protecting our family assets for actual family members. Hazel is a wonderful child, but she's not blood. She's not a real Newcomb." The words hung in the air like poison. Through the French doors, I could see Hazel playing in the garden, picking dandelions she'd probably bring in as a bouquet, not knowing that the woman she called Grandma had just erased her from the family legacy. "She is a real Newcomb," I said, my voice cracking. "She's been my daughter for 5 years. She's your granddaughter." Francine laughed, actually laughed, while examining her manicured nails. "Come on, Josie. You made a choice to adopt instead of keeping trying for your own kids. You can't expect Mom to treat her the same as our biological children. It's not fair to them." "Not fair?" I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "What's not fair is treating an innocent child like she's worth less because she didn't come from my body." Mother's face hardened into the expression I'd seen her use on loan defaulters at the bank. "Don't be melodramatic. I've provided for my real grandchildren. The decision is final. Mr. Whitaker has already filed the paperwork." That night, after I'd somehow made it through dinner and gotten Hazel home, she crawled into my lap while I sat in my father's old recliner. "Mommy, Grandma B looked sad today. Is she okay?" Even after everything, my sweet girl was worried about the woman who'd just declared her unworthy of the family name. "She's just missing Grandpa, sweetheart." "Me too," Hazel said, snuggling closer. "He used to tell me I was his special girl. He said I was extra special because you picked me specific, not like other kids who just get born to their families." I held her tighter, remembering how my father had been the only one to come with me to the adoption ceremony, how he'd cried happy tears when the judge declared Hazel officially mine, how he'd whispered to me, "She's always been ours, Josie. The paper just makes it legal." 3 days after Mother's announcement, I got a call that would change everything. Roland Pike, my father's attorney for the past 20 years, said he needed to see me urgently about Dad's estate. There are some significant assets your mother doesn't seem to be aware of, Josephine, he said carefully over the phone. As the executor of your father's will, you need to know about them. I'd been named executor, but I'd assumed it was just a formality since my parents had always shared everything. At least, that's what I'd thought. What I discovered in Mr. Pike's office that day made me realize my father had been playing a much longer game than any of us knew. He'd been protecting Hazel all along, and now it was my turn to finish what he'd started. 2 months later, my mother would try to access those accounts and discover they were gone. Every last penny distributed according to my father's true wishes and my authority as executor. She'd call me, screaming about betrayal and theft, but I'd simply remind her of what she'd said. Family protects family assets. And that's exactly what I did. I protected my daughter from the woman who refused to see her as family, because Hazel is my family, my real family, and my father knew that love, not blood, is what makes us real. Life in our small Connecticut town had always revolved around family traditions and Sunday gatherings at my parents' colonial house on Maple Street. The house itself was a testament to the Newcomb family legacy, with its white columns, black shutters, and the American flag my father raised every morning at exactly 7 o'clock. Those Sunday dinners were as reliable as clockwork, and for 38 years of my life, they defined what family meant to me. My father, Clifford, owned Newcomb Hardware on Main Street, a business his own father had started in 1952. Dad was the kind of man who knew every customer by name, extended credit to families going through hard times, and kept a jar of free candy by the register for kids. He'd wake up at 5 every morning, kiss my mother on the forehead, and head to the store whistling old Johnny Cash songs. He was gentle in a way that made you feel safe just being near him. Mother was his opposite in every way. Beatrice Newcomb ran the local Commerce Bank branch for 25 years before retiring, and she approached life like she approached loan applications. Everything had to be properly documented, correctly filed, and meet her exact standards. She kept plastic covers on the living room furniture, served dinner at precisely 6:30, and had never met a person she couldn't find fault with, except perhaps my sister Francine. Francine was 3 years older than me and had done everything right by mother's standards. She married Grant, a pharmaceutical sales rep with a growing portfolio, at 25. She produced 3 children in quick succession, Brendan, then Meredith, then Colton. She drove a white Lexus SUV, lived in a house with a 3-car garage, and never missed a chance to remind everyone that she was the success story of the family. I'd taken a different path. After college, I became an elementary school librarian because I loved children and books in equal measure. I married David when I was 28, and we tried for 5 years to have children. 4 miscarriages later, David decided he couldn't handle the heartbreak anymore. He also couldn't handle the idea of adoption. "I want my own kids, Josephine," he'd said the night he left. "Real kids. Is that so wrong?" The divorce was final when I was 33. 6 months later, I walked into a foster care adoption event at the community center, just to look, just to see. That's when I met Hazel. She was 3 years old, sitting in a corner with a picture book upside down, pretending to read it to a teddy bear with one missing eye. When she saw me watching, she walked over and handed me the book. "You read?" she asked in the tiniest voice. "I do read," I said, sitting down on the floor. "It's actually my job." "Your job is reading?" Her eyes went wide with wonder. We read 3 books together that day. When I left, she waved goodbye and said, "See you tomorrow, reading lady." I came back the next day, and the next. Within a month, I'd started the adoption process. Mother was horrified. "Josephine, think about what you're doing," she'd said over tea in her pristine kitchen. "You don't know what kind of problems that child might have. Her background, her genetics, her birth parents' issues. Why would you take on someone else's burden?" But Dad had seen it differently. He came with me to every visit, brought Hazel little gifts from the hardware store, like colored pencils and notepads, and sat through every court hearing. The day the adoption was finalized, he lifted Hazel up on his shoulders in front of the courthouse. "You want to know a secret?" he'd said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm your Grandpa Cliff now, and that makes you the luckiest girl in the world, because I give the best piggyback rides in all of Connecticut." That was 5 years ago. In those 5 years, Sunday dinners had become a study in contrasts. Mother would lavish attention on Francine's children, buying them expensive gifts, planning elaborate birthday parties, setting up college funds she talked about constantly. For Hazel, there were dollar store coloring books and reminders to use her napkin properly. "Brendan is so gifted," Mother would say, while Brendan played games on his iPhone at the dinner table. "Meredith has such natural grace," she'd continue, while Meredith rolled her eyes at everything anyone said. "And little Colton, well, he's going to be a heartbreaker," she'd finish, while Colton threw mashed potatoes at the wall. Meanwhile, Hazel would help me clear the table without being asked, thank Mother for dinner even when she'd been ignored all evening, and slip her hand into mine when we walked to the car. "Why does Grandma B love them more?" she asked me one night after Francine's kids had received new iPads for Christmas, while Hazel got mittens that were a size too small. I tucked her into bed, struggling to find the right words. "Grandma loves differently, sweetheart, but Grandpa and I love you exactly the same as anyone else. Actually, no, that's not true. We love you more." "More than infinity?" she asked, our special game. "More than infinity plus one," I confirmed, kissing her forehead. Dad had been the buffer between Mother's coldness and Hazel's tender heart. He'd sneak her special treats, teach her card games while Mother fussed over Francine's kids, and always made sure she knew she belonged. When he had his sudden heart attack 6 months ago, it wasn't just my father we lost. We lost our protector, our champion, the one person besides me who saw Hazel as exactly what she was, a Newcomb, through and through. 3 weeks after Dad's funeral, Mother called to announce a mandatory family meeting. Her voice on the phone had that clipped, businesslike tone she used when she was about to deliver what she considered good news that you weren't going to like. 2 o'clock sharp this? Saturday, Josephine. Don't be late and bring Hazel. She can play in the garden while the adults talk. The adults. As if my 8-year-old daughter wasn't part of the family discussions that might affect her future. That Saturday arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. Hazel wore her favorite purple dress, the one Dad had bought her for her last birthday, and carried the teddy bear she'd had since foster care. As we walked up to Mother's house, Francine's white Lexus was already in the driveway, parked at that perfect angle she always managed. Inside, Mother had set the dining room like she was hosting foreign dignitaries. The good china was out, the sterling silver gleamed, and legal documents were stacked at her place setting like weapons waiting to be deployed. "Hazel, sweetheart, why don't you go read in the sunroom?" Mother said, not even looking at my daughter. "She can stay," I said firmly. "She's part of this family." Mother's lips pursed. "This is a financial discussion, Josephine, hardly appropriate for a child." "Then Francine's kids should go outside too," I pointed out, seeing Brendan already sprawled on the couch with his phone. "That's different," Francine interjected, checking her diamond watch. "They're beneficiaries." The word hung in the air like a slap. Hazel looked at me, confused, and I felt my heart crack. "Go ahead to the sunroom, baby," I said quietly. "I'll come get you soon." After she left, Mother straightened the papers in front of her with surgical precision. "Now then, I've been to see Mr. Whitaker about updating my will. Given recent events with your father's passing, I felt it was important to ensure my wishes are crystal clear." She slid a document across the mahogany table. I picked it up, my hands steady despite the growing dread in my stomach. As I read, each line felt like another nail in a coffin I hadn't known was being built. Brendan would receive a trust fund of $150,000 for college and postgraduate education. Meredith would get the same, plus my grandmother's pearl necklace and jewelry collection. Colton would receive $150,000 and my father's vintage watch collection. The house would be held in trust for all 3 of them to share equally when Mother passed. "I don't see Hazel's name anywhere," I said, my voice sounding strange and hollow. "That's correct," Mother replied, folding her hands on the table. "I've thought long and hard about this, Josephine. I have a responsibility to preserve our family's assets for blood relatives. Hazel is a lovely child, but she's not a Newcomb by birth. She's not really family." "Not really family?" I repeated, feeling like I'd been punched. "She's been my daughter for 5 years. She calls you Grandma." Francine leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Josie, You have to understand Mom's position. She worked hard her whole life to build this wealth. It should go to actual grandchildren. Hazel is an actual grandchild. My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. No, Mother said firmly, she's not. She's a child you chose to take in, and that was your decision. But I won't have the Newcomb legacy diluted by including outsiders. Blood matters, Josephine. Heritage matters. Heritage? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. What heritage? Dad came from nothing. His father was a carpenter who started a hardware store. You were a bank teller who worked your way up. There's no royal bloodline here. Mother's face flushed red. How dare you diminish what we've built? Your father and I worked our entire lives to leave something for our family, our real family. Dad would never agree to this, I said, my voice breaking. He loved Hazel. Your father was sentimental, Mother said dismissively. He let emotions cloud his judgment. I'm being practical, realistic. Francine pulled out her phone, already calculating. Mom's being more than fair, Josie. She's not asking you to pay back the money she and Dad spent on your college or your wedding to David. You got your share already. My share? I laughed bitterly. This isn't about money, Francine. This is about a little girl being told she doesn't belong in the only family she's ever known. She doesn't need to know, Mother said, as if that solved everything. This is why I asked her to leave the room. There's no reason to upset the child. No reason. She's going to watch her cousins get cars for their 16th birthdays, college paid in full, wedding funds, and wonder why she gets nothing. You think she won't notice? You can provide for her yourself, Mother said coolly. You have a job. You made the choice to adopt her without consulting anyone. Why should Francine's children suffer because of your choices? Suffer? I looked at Brendan, still on his phone, probably playing a game that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. How exactly are they suffering? Mother stood up, signaling the meeting was over. The decision is made. Mr. Whitaker has already filed the paperwork. I've been more than generous over the years, Josephine. I've allowed that child at my table, in my home, at family gatherings, but I draw the line at pretending she's equal to my biological grandchildren. I walked to the sunroom in a daze. Hazel was curled up in the window seat reading one of the books from the shelf, her teddy bear beside her. She looked up with those trusting brown eyes and smiled. Are we ready to go home, Mommy? Yeah, baby, I said, helping her down. We're ready. As we walked past the dining room, Hazel waved at Mother. Bye, Grandma B. Thank you for having us. Mother barely nodded, already discussing dinner plans with Francine. As I buckled Hazel into her car seat, she asked, Mommy, why were you yelling? I could hear you from the sunroom. Sometimes adults disagree about important things, I said carefully. Was it about me? She asked quietly. Grandma doesn't like me very much, does she? I turned around in my seat to look at her. Grandma has trouble understanding that families are made of love, not just blood. But that's her problem, not yours. You are perfect exactly as you are. That night, after Hazel was asleep, I sat in my father's old recliner and cried until I had no tears left. The call from Roland Pike came 3 days after Mother's devastating announcement. I was at work reading The Velveteen Rabbit to a group of first graders when my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. I let it go to voicemail, but it rang again immediately. Mrs. Newcomb, this is Roland Pike, the message said. I need to discuss your father's estate urgently. Please call me back as soon as possible. There are significant matters that require your immediate attention as executor. I called him back during my lunch break, sitting in my car in the school parking lot while rain drummed on the windshield. Josephine, thank you for returning my call, Mr. Pike said, his voice careful and measured. Could you come to my office this afternoon? What I need to discuss shouldn't be done over the phone. At 3:30, I sat across from Mr. Pike in his downtown office, surrounded by law books and the faint smell of old leather and coffee. He pulled out a thick manila folder and set it between us like a secret about to be revealed. Your father came to see me about 18 months ago, he began, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. He was concerned about certain family dynamics and wanted to ensure specific protections were in place. Protections? I leaned forward. Your father maintained several investment accounts that were never converted to joint ownership with your mother. He also kept the hardware store in his name alone, despite your mother's assumptions. Mr. Pike opened the folder, revealing pages of financial statements. Were you aware of the extent of your father's personal assets? I shook my head, speechless. Your father was a very prudent investor, Mr. Pike continued. He started buying index funds in the 80s, reinvested every dividend, and lived well below his means. The hardware store was also significantly more profitable than he let on. In total, the assets under your control as executor amount to approximately $1.8 million. The number hit me like cold water. $1.8 million. But Mother always handled the finances. She would know about this. Your mother handled the household accounts and her own salary, Mr. Pike corrected. Your father deliberately kept these assets separate. He filed taxes separately, used a different accountant, and made me promise to only reveal this to you as executor after his passing. He pulled out another document, this one in my father's handwriting. He left specific instructions, though he also gave you broad discretionary powers as executor. I read Dad's words through tears that I refused to let fall. My dearest, Josephine, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably discovering I kept more secrets than a man should from his wife. But sometimes, protecting the people we love means making hard choices. Your mother has many wonderful qualities, but her blindness toward Hazel breaks my heart. That little girl is as much my granddaughter as any child ever could be. Use these assets wisely. Protect our special girl. The hardware store should go to Antonio if he wants it. He's earned it after 20 years of loyalty. The rest I leave to your judgment. You've always had the biggest heart and the clearest moral compass in our family. Trust yourself. All my love, Dad. He also set up a special provision, Mr. Pike added, pulling out another document. This is a trust fund for Hazel's education, already funded with $150,000, exactly equal to what your mother set aside for each of Francine's children. It's ironclad and can't be touched by anyone but Hazel when she turns 18. He knew, I whispered. He knew Mother would do this. He suspected. Mr. Pike confirmed. He also transferred the hardware store into a trust last year with you as the sole trustee. Your mother has no legal claim to it or any of the other assets I've shown you. I spent the next 2 hours in that office, making decisions that would change everything. First, I authorized the sale of the hardware store to Antonio for $200,000, a fraction of its $600,000 value. But I knew Dad would want his loyal employee to have a real chance at owning it. What about the remaining assets? Mr. Pike asked. I want to create a foundation, I said, the idea crystallizing as I spoke. The Clifford Newcomb Memorial Foundation for Foster and Adopted Children. Every penny except Hazel's trust goes into it. Scholarships for kids who've been adopted or aged out of foster care. Mr. Pike smiled for the first time. Your father would be proud. I'll draw up the paperwork immediately. And my mother can't challenge this? She has no grounds. You're the legal executor. You followed all requirements. The assets were never hers to begin with. That evening, I picked Hazel up from after-school care and took her for ice cream, something we rarely did on a school night. What's the special occasion? She asked, chocolate chip mint already dripping down her cone. Sometimes we need to celebrate the people who love us, I said, thinking of my father's secret protection. Like Grandpa Cliff? Exactly like Grandpa Cliff. She was quiet for a moment, then said, He told me something before he went to heaven. He said I should always remember that being chosen is more special than being born into something. He said you chose me and he chose me, and that made me double special. I reached across the table and squeezed her sticky hand. He was absolutely right. That night, I signed all the paperwork Mr. Pike had prepared. The foundation would be officially established within the week. Hazel's education was secured. Antonio would take over the hardware store on Monday. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like I was finally doing what Dad had trusted me to do. Protect the family members who needed protecting, honor those who deserved honoring, and ensure that love, not blood, determined who received the fruits of a lifetime of hard work. Mother would discover all of this in exactly 2 months when she tried to access accounts she assumed were hers. The storm that would follow would be fierce, but I was ready. I had my father's letter, Mr. Pike's legal expertise, and most importantly, the knowledge that I'd done exactly what my father wanted. I'd protected our special girl and honored his true legacy. The money was never really the point. It was about proving that Hazel belonged, that she mattered, that she was worth protecting. Dad knew that. Now it was time for everyone else to learn it too. 2 months had passed since I'd restructured my father's estate. The Clifford Newcomb Memorial Foundation had already awarded its first 3 scholarships, and Antonio had transformed the hardware store with a fresh coat of paint and a new sign that read, Newcomb and Associates Hardware, to honor Dad's legacy. I was shelving returns at the library when my phone exploded with notifications. 17 missed calls from Francine, 5 from Mother, dozens of text messages in all caps. I silenced my phone and continued working until my lunch break, then finally listened to the first voicemail. "Josephine, what have you done?" Francine's shriek was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Mother is at the bank having a complete meltdown. Call me now." I drove to Mother's house instead of calling. Better to face this in person, with witnesses if necessary. When I arrived, Francine's Lexus was parked crooked, one wheel on the lawn, something she'd never normally do. Inside, I found them in the kitchen. Mother sat at the table, pale as paper, staring at a bank statement. Francine paced behind her, still in her real estate blazer, her face red with rage. "There you are." Francine spun toward me. "Mother went to transfer money for Brendan's sailing camp, the one that costs $8,000 for the summer. The account was empty. Empty, Josephine." I set my purse down calmly and took a seat across from Mother. "What account are you talking about?" Mother's voice was barely a whisper. "Your father's investment accounts, the ones at Vanguard, the ones at Fidelity, they're all closed." "Oh, those accounts," I said evenly. "The ones you never told me about when you were dividing up your will? The ones you forgot to mention when you said Francine's children deserved everything because they're real family?" "You had no right," Mother said, her voice gaining strength. "I am his widow. That money belongs to me." "Actually, it didn't," I replied, pulling out the folder I'd been carrying in my purse for 2 months, waiting for this moment. Dad kept those accounts in his name only. As executor of his estate, I had full legal authority to distribute them, according to his wishes and my discretion. "But there was nearly $2 million, Francine gasped, grabbing the bank statements. "Where is it? What did you do?" "Every penny has been properly distributed," I said. "Hazel's college fund is secured, exactly equal to what each of your children received, Francine. The hardware store was sold to Antonio, keeping all 6 employees' jobs safe, and the remainder went to establish the Clifford Newcomb Memorial Foundation for foster and adopted children." "You gave away our inheritance to strangers?" Francine shrieked. "I gave away Dad's money according to his values," I corrected. "Here's his letter of instruction if you'd like to read it." I placed Dad's handwritten note on the table. Mother's hands shook as she picked it up. I watched her face change as she read his words about her coldness toward Hazel, about protecting our special girl, about trusting me to do what was right. "He never said anything," Mother said faintly. 42 years of marriage, and he never said he was unhappy with me. "He wasn't unhappy with you," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "He loved you. But he also loved Hazel, and he knew you'd never protect her the way she deserved." "This is fraud." Francine pulled out her phone. "I'm calling our lawyer right now." "Call him," I said. "Mr. Pike has all the documentation ready. Every transaction was legal. Every form was filed properly. I followed the law to the letter." Mother stood up slowly, using the table for support. "You did this out of spite, because I didn't include that child in my will." "Her name is Hazel," I said firmly. "And no, I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because Dad trusted me to protect the people who needed protecting. Your biological grandchildren already have trust funds, college accounts, and will inherit this house. They have a grandmother who adores them and parents who can provide for them. Hazel had one person in this family besides me who loved her unconditionally, and he's gone." "But what about my grandchildren's future?" Francine demanded, apparently missing the irony. "Your children's future is secured," I said. "They have everything they need and most of what they want, But now, 12 other kids will also have a chance at college. Kids who were given up, abandoned, or orphaned. Kids like Hazel, who deserve a chance just as much as anyone born into privilege. Mother sank back into her chair. The hardware store, too? That was supposed to be Brendan's someday. Brendan has never shown 1 minute of interest in tools or hardware, I pointed out. Antonio worked beside Dad for 20 years. He deserves it. You've ruined everything, Francine hissed. Our family's legacy, our children's inheritance. No, I said, standing to leave. I've honored our family's legacy, Dad's real legacy. The one where he helped people who needed it, where he judged others by their character, not their bloodline, where he chose to love a little girl who needed a grandfather, even though she didn't share his DNA. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo from last week. 3 teenagers stood in front of the community college, holding certificates. These are the first 3 scholarship recipients. Maria was aged out of foster care at 18. David was adopted by his aunt after his parents died. Thomas was in 7 different foster homes before finding his forever family at 15. They're all going to college because of Dad's money. Mother looked at the photo, then at me. Your father would have told me if he wanted this. He did tell you, I said quietly. Every time he brought Hazel a gift you complained about. Every time he insisted she sit next to him at dinner. Every time he called her his granddaughter while you called her Josephine's adopted child. He told you, Mother. You just weren't listening. I picked up my purse and headed for the door, then turned back one last time. The Foundation's first annual gala is next month. We're honoring Dad's memory and raising money for next year's scholarships. You're both welcome to attend, but only if you can remember that every child there is someone's real family. As I drove away, I saw them in my rearview mirror, still sitting at that kitchen table, surrounded by the paperwork of their shattered expectations. They'd probably never forgive me. But somewhere, I knew Dad was smiling, knowing that his true legacy wasn't money in a bank account, but love in action, protecting those who needed it most. It's been a year now since that explosive day in Mother's kitchen. The silence from her side has been deafening, but not unexpected. She hasn't called, hasn't visited, and removed all photos of Hazel and me from her Facebook. Francine only texts when she needs something, like when she wanted to know if I had Dad's old golf clubs for Brendan. I told her they'd been donated to the youth sports program at the community center. Last week changed everything, though. I was at Riverside Park with Hazel, watching her practice for her school's theater production of Matilda. She was playing the lead role, something that would have made Dad burst with pride. An elderly woman approached us slowly, using a walker decorated with tennis balls. "Excuse me, are you Josephine Newcomb?" she asked, slightly out of breath. "Yes, I am." "I'm Dorothy Huang. I had to find you to thank you personally." She eased herself onto the bench beside me. "My grandson, Timothy, received a scholarship from your father's foundation. He's the first person in our family to attend college." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and showed me a photo of a young man in a university sweatshirt, grinning widely. "We adopted him from foster care 8 years ago when he was 10. Everyone said we were too old, that taking in a traumatized child at our age was foolish. Even our own children said we were making a mistake." "He looks happy," I said, seeing the joy radiating from the photo. "He is now, but it wasn't always this way. Timothy came to us angry, broken, convinced he was worthless because his birth parents chose drugs over him. My husband and I spent years showing him he was worthy of love." She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "Your foundation letter said every adopted child deserves the same chances as any other child. When Timothy read that, he cried. Someone finally saw him as equal, not as damaged goods." Hazel had stopped practicing and came over, always curious about new people. "Hi, I'm Hazel. Are you okay? You're crying." Dorothy smiled at her. "These are happy tears, sweet girl. I was just telling your mom how special she is." "She is special," Hazel agreed matter-of-factly. "She chose me when nobody else wanted me, and that makes her the best mom ever." That evening, as I tucked Hazel into bed, she asked, "That lady's grandson was adopted too?" "Yes, sweetheart, just like you." "And now he gets to go to college because of Grandpa Cliff's money?" "That's right." She was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness only an 8-year-old can muster. "So Grandpa turned something sad into something happy?" "How do you mean, baby?" Well, Grandma B being mean about me was sad, but now lots of kids get to go to college, so it's happy. It's like in Matilda, when the mean principal ends up making Matilda stronger. Sometimes children see truths more clearly than adults ever could. The foundation has now helped 12 kids get to college. Each acceptance letter we receive has my father's picture on it. The one from Hazel's adoption celebration, where they're both wearing party hats and grinning like they've won the lottery, because in a way, we all had. 6 months ago, Mother tried to contest the will execution through the courts. Her lawyer argued that I'd exercised undue influence over my father and acted beyond my authority as executor. The judge threw it out in less than 10 minutes, stating that I had acted entirely within my legal rights and had, in fact, shown remarkable fiscal responsibility in establishing a charitable foundation. Francine still posts passive-aggressive Facebook updates about family loyalty and blood being thicker than water. Last month, she posted a quote about forgiveness with the caption, "Some betrayals run too deep." Her friends comfort her in the comments, not knowing the full story. But the truth is, I've gained more than I've lost. Antonio invited us to the hardware store's anniversary celebration, where he announced he was creating an apprenticeship program for foster youth aging out of the system. 3 local businesses have contributed to the foundation after hearing our story. The library where I work is creating a special collection of books about adoption and chosen families, funded by a donation in Dad's name. Most importantly, Hazel is thriving. She made honor roll for the 3rd consecutive quarter, landed the lead in the school play, and recently announced she wants to be an adoption lawyer when she grows up. "Why an adoption lawyer?" her teacher asked during career day. "Because every kid deserves someone who fights for them," Hazel explained. "Like my mom fought for me. Like my grandpa Cliff fought for me. Love isn't about blood, it's about choice. And everyone deserves to be chosen." The teacher later told me there wasn't a dry eye in the classroom. Yesterday, a letter arrived from Mother. The first contact in a year. The envelope was thin, the message brief. "Josephine, I saw the Foundation's article in the newspaper, the one about the young man becoming a doctor. Perhaps I was wrong. Beatrice." Perhaps. It wasn't an apology, but it was a crack in the wall she'd built. I showed it to Hazel, who read it carefully and said, "Maybe Grandma Bay is learning that love is bigger than she thought." "Maybe," I agreed. "People can surprise you." "Should we invite her to my play?" I looked at my daughter, this child who'd been deemed unworthy of inheritance, offering grace to someone who'd rejected her. "If you want to, sweetheart." "I think Grandpa Cliff would want me to," she said simply. And she was right. Dad always believed in second chances, in redemption, in the possibility that people could grow. The inheritance he left wasn't just money. It was a lesson in what family really means. Blood may be thicker than water, but love is thicker than blood. Love is choosing to fight for someone when the world says they're not worth it. Love is seeing value where others see deficits. Love is my father secretly protecting a grandchild who wasn't really his, except in all the ways that actually mattered. The real inheritance wasn't the money we distributed or the foundation we created. It was learning that true family stands up for each other, especially when it costs everything. It was discovering that sometimes doing the right thing means losing people you thought would always be there. And it was understanding that chosen family, the people who love you because they want to, not because they have to, are the greatest treasure of all. Somewhere up there, I know my father is smiling, knowing he protected the granddaughter who needed it most, the one he chose to love, the one who chose us right back. And that choice? That's worth more than all the money in the world. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that chosen family is real family. Leave a comment below about your own experiences with chosen family or adoption. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about love, family, and standing up for what's right. Thank you for listening. And remember, you deserve to be chosen, and you deserve to be loved exactly as you are.